Scratch building a 16mm scale wagon. How hard can it be?
Hi and welcome back to my channel. On my workbench you can see a selection of a few of the wagons that I built last year. We've got a guards van, a coal hopper, my basic design of 5-plank wagon, and then a more recent design that I came up with for a curved ended wagon. In this video I will be going through and showing you how I build my 5-plank wagon design. It'll be not quite the same as this. This is a more basic version of what I will be building. The basic size and method of construction is the same though. The wagon will be built from 3mm ply. I have pre-cut this on a table saw and the pieces are here. We have the two sides, the two ends and the floor. The sole bars for the chassis will be made using this 3mm by 10mm strip wood, and then the strapping pieces on the end here will be made using this 4mm by 4mm strip wood. The rest of the strapping and the hinges will be made using this 1mm black plastic. I will also be using 8mm round-headed pins for the bolts in the hinges and the strapping, and little round eyelets, and then some steel wire for the hinges. It's a fairly basic and easy to make design. Enjoy. The first part of this wagon build will be to mark and scribe the planking on the ends of the wagon. This wagon I am using as an example has the 5 planks as per the one I'm making and the buffer beam. The difference between these two wagons for the ends is the fact that the one I'm building will have an angled cut on the buffer beam. First I'm going to mark out for the planking. These are 8mm planks, and then the buffer beam is 13mm. I will do this first by marking where the planking comes with the pencil and ruler, and then scribing the planking detail in using the metal scribe. Now we have two scribed ends. The next job is to cut the angles on the buffer beams. To get the angle correct, I will be measuring in 7mm along the bottom of the buffer beam and then 10mm up the side, drawing a line across and then cutting the corners off. Now we have both ends scribed and the corners of the buffer beams cut off. They are now ready for the assembly stage. The next job is to mark out and scribe the sides of the wagon. Looking at the example, we have the 5 planks and then a 3mm piece along the bottom which will be painted black. The final piece of ply to scribe is the floor. As I previously mentioned, the planking for the floor is 10mm. We now have all of the plywood parts for the wagon scribed. it is time to take these and glue them together. As you saw in the previous clip, the sides and ends have been glued together. That is ready for a first coat of the grey primer that I used to paint these wagons. I haven't glued the flooring yet, as that will be stained and then glued in once the first coat of primer has been applied to the wagon body. Rather than sitting and watching paint dry, we will now look at the method of making the strapping for the sides of the wagon. We'll start with the hinges. As I've previously mentioned, these are made from 1mm black plastic. There is then a piece of steel wire cut to roughly about 8mm and glued on to create the hinge effect. On this example wagon, the bolt detail on the hinge is just punched into the plastic, but it doesn't show up very well, so I normally use the round-headed pins that I mentioned. I have several sets of these hinges pre-cut, so I'm just going to show you on one how I do it, and then use the other three of the pre-cut ones. The same with these end bits of strapping. I will demonstrate making them on one and then use all the pre-cut parts that I have. So let's get a close-up view of the workbench and I will show you how it's done. So here is one of the pre-cut hinges for reference. The main part of the hinge is 37mm long, and then this piece at the bottom is 3mm from top to bottom. The hinge is 4mm across, and then this bit is 3mm across.
And there you have it, a hinge cut out and ready for gluing onto the wagon. The next piece to show you how to make is the strips for the end here. They're fairly simple to make. They're just 8mm that way and then 40mm that way. The final pieces to make are these little latches here. These are made out of 4, or I believe on here is 5mm, but I'm going to use 4mm. Little 10mm long strips. It then has 2 pins for bolt heads and then a eyelet for just to represent a latch. We're now at the assembly stage. We've got the wagon body painted, the floor stained, all of the strapping. I also have what I will be using for couplings here, which are just simple blocks of wood with holes drilled in them for the coupling hooks. In the next sequence of footage you will see I will be gluing the floor into the wagon body, measuring and cutting the sole bars and gluing them into place, and then I will be gluing on the strapping and hinges to the outside of the wagon. I will also be cutting and gluing on the strapping on the ends using the 4mm by 4mm strip wood.
In this next clip, you will now see me marking out where the holes for the pins will need to be drilled. This is quite simple. It'll be just eyeing it up halfway along each plank on the hinge. We'll put a little indentation with the scribe on all of the 4 hinges, and then also in the centre of the latch assemblies. Right, I will now be drilling the holes using a 1mm drill bit. You have to be careful because these drill bits are very, very easy to snap. Now it's time to put the cut down pins into the holes drilled in the strapping and hinges. Do this with a pair of pliers. Just push it in, and then we get some super glue on. I'm using a coffee tin lid, and you just get a thin piece of wire. Put a bit of glue on the pin, and then using this piece of wood I have stuck out, you put it inside the wagon, and then you can tap the pin down into the hole. Right, the next stage is to cut 4 of these eyelets down to fit into the holes, the remaining holes on the latches. As you will have seen in the previous few clips, not only did I glue the eyelets into the latch, I've painted the underneath in the centre. It is easier to do this before you glue the wheels and axle boxes on.
and then I also glued the blocks for the couplings on. Now you will see me prepping and gluing the wheels and axle boxes on, and then painting the whole of the underframe, buffer beams, couplings, etc. We'll paint them black. Once that is done, it will just be left to touch up the black for the strapping and the end bits of strapping, and then there'll be a final touch up of the grey, and then we have a complete wagon ready for a running session at Butterley, which will be the day after I finish filming this video. Concludes the wagon build. The wagon will now join the Wessex and Mercia Light Railway fleet and will be regularly seen on the channel on running session videos. Thank you for watching, if you have made it this far.